what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get the CPS pulled up here and show you guys how to do that in the CPS. And then we are going to go into how to do that from the front panel of the radio. I will need to move some stuff on the desk to put that camera up, but we'll get that in a moment. All right. So share screen, screen 1, share. All right. Can you guys see that okay, or is it kind of blurry?
Looks great.
All right. So here is my code plug for my radio. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the very bottom of the code plug, which I still need to trim this code plug. There's all my TGIF stuff that's programmed in. But you can see I've got a bunch of spaces down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to channel 973. I'm going to double click it, and then I'm going to label this personal simplex. And then you can do either analog, VHF, or UHF. The key is to make sure that you're not on a channel that is the repeater input frequency of a repeater, and also not another frequency that is in use. So try and check that beforehand before you do any programming on stuff. You want to make sure that you're keeping good amateur radio practices. So right here, we're going to use 146.52. That's the national calling frequency, but that is also a simplex channel. Since I don't believe I have that one programmed in here, we're going to use it for our example tonight. So 146.52, and that's my receive, and 146.52 is my transmit. And then I'm going to hit A for analog, T for turbo, 2 for 25 kilohertz, and I don't need to worry about busy lock or scan list because I'm not making a scan list, and I'm not doing APRS reporting on this channel. Now, something that you can do is you can actually do tones for you and your friends. So you've got some tones to try and keep things where you're only hearing each other instead of the regular frequencies, people on that same frequency if somebody keys up on it. So you can come in here, click CTCSS or DCS, depending on which one you want. And you can set that for encode and decode and have a different tone for each one. I'm going to leave those off for this. Carrier squelch mode will only show carrier if you don't have tone set up. But if you have tone set up, let me show you that. I'm just going to put 62.5 and 62.5. Now we get a drop down that shows CTCSS/DCS because we have tones enabled. But with no tones, we only get carrier. So there's that. All right. And then what I need to do is I need to put this into a zone itself. Very true, Eric. The 878 can do custom tones as well. But we're going to stick with the regular tones for this. But feel free to experiment. If you've got two 878s or an 878 and a 578, you guys can make up your own tones with those. So in the zone, here is everything that is in the code plug. You can tell there's a lot of zones. I have the ultra code plug, which I'm going to trim this down. So I'm going to create a new zone, and I'm just going to label it simplex. And then, since that's the last channel I added, I'm going to come all the way down and hit personal simplex, put it in, and then I can write it to the radio, and I'll have that frequency in the radio. Now, one of the things you can also do is you can actually set up several simplex frequencies in a scan list and have the radio scan that zone or that scan list for those simplex frequencies so it can rotate through them. So you can go over here to scan list, put in simplex, and you'll add that channel to the scan list. Just add it to the scan list and any channels that you want in that scan list. Click OK, and then you'll come back to the channel once you've got at least one channel in the scan list, and you can actually come over here to scan list, and you'll see that drop down now. So click simplex, click OK, and then Andy, do you know some other simplex frequencies that we can put in here? Because I'm drawing a blank right now.
You can do 446. You've got.
All right.
Okay, so 446, you can do 146, 400, 410, 425.
All right. And this is analog simplex that I'm putting in, but let's go ahead and throw a digital simplex in here too.
Digital.
All right. So DMR mode is going to be simplex. And I'm going to leave it on talk group 1 because that's the default. My radio ID will be my radio ID. Color code 1 is the color code I'm going to use, and time slot 1. Now you can vary this up. You could put this on color code 5, and as long as the other person has theirs on color code 5 and time slot 1, you guys will be able to hear each other back and forth. So that won't be an issue. Do remember that encryption is not allowed on amateur radio bands.
It is only if you post your key publicly.
Okay, as far as I knew,
you have to post it publicly.
Okay, that's news to me because I've always been told that you can't do encryption on amateur radio bands.
You absolutely can, but if you do not share the key, then it becomes illegal.
Okay, something that I didn't know. All right, so bandwidth we don't have to worry about because with DMR, it's always going to be 12.5 kilohertz unless they change the DMR standards and go to something like 6.25 kilohertz, which if that ever happens, well, Lord help us all. Okay, something that you may want to turn on in case the other person doesn't have your DMR ID in their radio is send talk or alias. That will send that little bit with your information from your radio to theirs so they can see your name and call sign in case they don't have their digital ID contact list updated. So we're going to put simplex and I'm going to put DMR. And I'm going to put CC5 and SL1 if it'll let me. Let's get rid of the I and let's get rid of that. So it says simplex and SL1 or S1 for slot 1. All right. Now I'll add that to the zone. And remember, any new channels you add always show up at the bottom of your list, unless you somehow have space in the middle of your list and you put them there. That's why whenever I make changes, I do a complete rewrite of my code plug. So when I get ready to redo this code plug, it's going to be an hour and maybe 2-hour project for me. Although some of you have seen me write code plugs for you on your radio in less than an hour. So it just depends on how much time I want to take doing it and how distracted I get with YouTube. Got to watch those videos about new stuff coming to the market. Anyway, so next we've got those in. So we can come back over here to our scan list. We're going to double click scan list and then come back down and we've got that in there. So now I'm going to move it over. So we've got that there. Click OK. Go back to the channels and make sure I have that scan list in there for simplex. All right. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I have a scan button programmed. Eric, that is a really good question. I would recommend not doing more than 5 at a time just to keep things easy on you, but you could probably do maybe 10, 20, 30. You know what? Let's find out. Let's make a new scan list. We're going to label it test. And let's just start adding channels to it and see how many it'll let us add. See where it maxes out at. I'm just going to go to 256 and see if it'll take all of them. It'll let you do 51. Stuff in the background is beeping at me. So yes, 51 appears to be the number, appears to be the magic number. So I can go ahead and hit cancel because we're not going to make that scan list because scan list with DMR usually don't work unless you're using simplex. Most hotspots, if you put in very active channels, they don't tend to release before something else keys up in time, before that channel becomes active again, and you'll miss what's on the other channel. Kind of like talk group 91. If you have talk group 91 on a scan list, you may as well just not have the scan list. It's not going to play well. So there's that. Now let's go to optional settings, or come over here to key function, and we're going to make sure that we have a scan key set up. So I don't have a scan key set up right now, but what I can do is I can actually change P1 to scan. If I don't go past it, which I think I already did. Yep, I did. There it is. All right. So short press of P1, which is a second or less, is going to tell it to scan. Now, that's what I'm setting up in the code plug. Actually, why do I have PF2 set as a hotkey? That's not even... All right, let's make PF2 the bottom key right here on the side of the radio. This is your PF2 key right here. Let's make this one the scan key instead of one of these. We'll save those for something else. All right. So now I've got my hotkey 1, which is my disconnect, set up on PF3, which is the button right by your antenna. Regardless of the color, it's the one on top of the radio by the antenna. So this works for the 868, 878, 878 UV2 plus, 878 UV2, 878 UV, all of those. Also, this button is the same button on the BTEC 6X2, I believe, is the model number. So there's that. So we've got scan set up now. So now I can go in, choose my COM port, and yes, I know I've got a few. I added some radio software to my computer. Hit OK for COM3 because that's what it is. I'm going to click write data to radio, click OK. It's going to write it to the radio, and then once it's done writing to the radio, I'm going to show you guys how to actually use scan on the radio. Here is the radio screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to menu, and I'm going to go down to where it says scan. I'm going to hit the menu key or confirm, and then I'm going to go down to scan list, hit confirm, and then I'm going to select Simplex, and I'm going to hit select current scan list. Click confirm, and then when I go to that talk group or that zone on the radio, I should probably go the other way, get there faster. Personal Simplex, I can now press PF2, and it'll start scanning back and forth. So for scan list to work, you actually have to go in, have scan on, or you don't even have to have the scan on. The scan key will turn it on. But you do have to set the scan list up in the channel itself, and you have to create the scan list. So hopefully you guys can see that flashing back and forth between the two. It's going back and forth, so when I key up, we should be able to hear me on this. So let's see. W9JAM.
Yep, sounds great.
Are
you on the wrong mode?
Let's try that. W9JAM. W9JAM. Well,
yep,
that worked.
I think it works.
Yep. And we can turn the volume down on here, and we should be able to hear me on this one as well once I remember how to turn my squelch up. There we go. Figuring out a new radio on the air. W9JAM, test 1, 2, 3, 4. W9JAM, test 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is how you do that.